Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, laptop, or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and much, much more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. So give it a try.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is my boomstick.
Here's Johnny.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Righteous! Righteous! Yeah!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Houston, we have a problem.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
All right.
Welcome back, everyone, to Those Film Nerds podcast. My name is Will Spalding, and as always, I'm joined by the coveted Sam Dierberger. Sam, I'm going to give you an adjective every week from now on. This week it's coveted. How are you doing?
Thou shall not covet your podcast partner.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
I'm well. How are you, Will Spalding?
I'm good. I'm doing great, actually. But
We're getting through.
we are. But we're going to talk some movie news today. We got a couple interesting things. And then, of course, we're always going to break it on down for the movie of the week. But Sam, can you let the audience know what is the movie of the week?
I'm thinking of ending things.
Jake, my boyfriend. It's snowing.
Winter is coming in.
We have a real connection. A rare and intense attachment. I've never experienced anything like it. I'm thinking of ending things.
Huh?
What?
Did you say something?
I don't think so.
Weird.
Weird is right. To quote Jesse Plemons, weird. But
Jesse Plemons, discount Philip Seymour Hoffman. Jesse Plemons.
you're right, absolutely. But I don't want to talk about I'm thinking of ending things quite yet. But I am extremely excited to talk about it when we get to that segment. Because
Yes,
I know we
absolutely.
both have some thoughts that we want to get out.
Big time.
But before that, I want to talk some movie news. I know we each have one. Let's talk about yours first because this needs to be said. But let's hear it.
So listen, people, there are some actors that, the Daniel Day-Lewises who, hit the age of 65 and decide, you know what, that's retirement age. I'm done.
I've won a few Oscars. I've made some good movies.
I'm going to go out on top while I'm still interesting. And then there's other actors who don't do that and live well into their 70s and continue to work frequently. I'm speaking, of course, of one Mr. Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro has 2 upcoming movies sometime for release in the next 6 months, which is kind of crazy. The schedule this man works is just insane to me, really. So the first being War with Grandpa, which is supposed to be a kind of I watched the trailer, seemed kind of pretty generic, except for Robert De Niro being in it, and it centers around a young boy who has this hatred for his grandfather, and they seem to just prank each other. That's all I can kind of derive out of it. The other one is The Comeback Trail, which is kind of like a meta film comedy kind of thing that actually looks pretty interesting. Kind of a like a self-parodical kind of film. So both of those seem kind of interesting to me. I don't know why. So yeah, that is the news of the
I
week.
think, I mean, aside from thinking that Robert De Niro needs to stop, I think that we need to have a committee for old actors and actresses that are considered the greats. So, De Niro we're on De Niro. We'll just use him as an example. So when De Niro wants to make a new movie, he has to go to this committee. He has to say, here's what I'm thinking. It's called War with Grandpa. And then here they tell him, De Niro tells him what it's about. And then the committee has to be like, yes or no. Like, you can make this, or no, you can't make this. And in this case, they'd say no. Because why is he doing this? Like, De Niro, you were in Godfather 2. Like, you won an Oscar for that. You were in Heat. What are you doing?
What else do you have to prove? Like,
I see. And look, I'm all for cashing them checks. Like, sometimes you just got to get paid. But why? Why is he doing that? I don't understand. Does anyone find Robert De Niro very funny?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's funny in an ironic way. Like, people, when he settled into this, like, meet the Fockers kind of like archetype where he's kind of the curmudgeon old grandpa. It's only funny because it's ironic, because it's Robert De Niro being a grandpa. And that's where the laughs come from, apparently. So yeah, there's that. And it's like, honestly, some of these guys, I would suspect, just didn't have a very good plan for retirement. That's my assumption. I mean,
Morgan Freeman needs to go to this committee a lot as well.
Well, I mean, the thing about Morgan, though, is Morgan got his start very late in life. Like, he wasn't a big name until the late 80s, and now he himself is approaching 90. So,
Yeah, but we can't have Morgan Freeman making Ben-Hur reboots, or Ben-Hur remakes, because we don't need that.
Yeah, I guess. It's lost on me. I actually I love a couple more pieces of news that are kind of intriguing to me.
Sure.
The first is that first of all, what a flurry of movies for Mr. Joseph Gordon-Levitt this year. He's got a brand new movie coming out on Netflix soon, called Seven something.
The Trial of the Chicago 7?
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I'm super looking forward to it. Aaron Sorkin. Yep.
Kind of a historical drama. I just saw the trailer watching football today, and I was like, oh, wow. Look at Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Just busy all of a sudden.
He's everywhere. He is everywhere.
Just out of nowhere, decides to take a 4-year hiatus, comes back, and just starts getting to work.
Got to make up for lost time somehow.
I guess so. But that looks really good.
Trial of Chicago 7, I think, has potential to win Best Picture with Sorkin at the helm. And, a rookie cast of Sacha Baron Cohen, JGL, Eddie Redmayne, Jeremy Irons, just a decent cast. So we'll see what that crew can put together. But I'm really excited for that movie. I'm always game for a little Sorkin dialogue.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see him kind of in that element of a historical. I mean, I guess you could call The Social Network historical, but
modern,
I'm talking, very modern. But like a historical piece. So that'll be very interesting to see.
Sure.
The other piece of news I had is there's this other Netflix film. Speaking of actors who are all over the place, all of a sudden, Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland star in a movie called The Devil All the Time.
Yeah.
And according to Screen Rant, this article is called "The Devil All the Time." Early reviews are very mixed, but praise the cast. And it looks like this will be kind of a dark psychological thriller set in a small Ohio town post World War II. And it's about a young man named Arvin Russell, played by Holland, who is still shaped by tragedy after the death of his mother and veteran father. And there's some other details there that seem kind of spoilerish. But needless to say, Pattinson plays an ominous preacher that gets involved. Jason Clarke and it looks like Bill Skarsgård are also involved. So that should be very interesting to see.
Which may end up being our movie of the week. I was trying to plot out like a calendar, and it looks like this upcoming weekend is a little dry in the theaters. So that The Devil All the Time might end up being our movie of the week out on Netflix. But
September
we might
16th,
reconvene on that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that would be fun. I like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Now you go ahead.
I was going to ask, is that all you have to say? Because I'm ready to talk.
That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Because I'm ready to talk about this little movie. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, called Dune.
Dune. What is that?
I don't know. Just kidding. Dune trailer came out this past week, and it looks fantastic. Like, utterly fantastic. And I'm not a huge fan of the director, which I know is very controversial. I think he's a little, very overrated. Yeah, actually, one of the few. I like Arrival, but that's about it. Halfway like Enemy. But other than that, I think Blade Runner 2049 is pretty overrated. I think Prisoners is not great. And some of his other early work I am not a huge fan of. But this movie looks very good. And the trailer got me very excited for this movie. But you saw the trailer, Sam. What'd you think?
Well, first of all, this cast is ridiculous.
The cast is insane. How about you read it off? Do you have it pulled up?
This is like this is almost like French Dispatch level cast. We're looking at Timothy Chalamet. Timothée. Yeah, he's been around. I don't know. Rebecca Ferguson. She looks vaguely familiar. I can't name anything she's in. Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Stephen McKinley, Zendaya. Haven't really seen her in. I know who she is, but I haven't seen her in any movies. So that'll be interesting. Who else? Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem for no reason. Like, this cast is ridiculous.
This cast is very crazy. And I haven't seen the 1984 David Lynch version, but I
don't think David Lynch wants you to see it.
I don't think he does either. But that's 2 weeks in a row a David Lynch reference. Okay. But to my understanding, that movie's a little bit more like quirky and colorful. This seems like Denis is going very dark and brooding, and we'll see how that turns out. I mean, it's a space epic. It's going to be 2 movies. So it could either fall straight on its face, or this might end up being one of my favorites of the year. So I don't know if it'll have much middle ground, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the strange thing about Dune is that no one, I mean, apart maybe vaguely from the David Lynch version, I mean, the novel itself has been highly praised, but it hasn't had that mainstream success like Lord of the Rings or a Star Wars or like Harry Potter might have had, So it's a very odd franchise to be taking on. And, part of me thinks that any space epic that extends to multiple movies post Star Wars is like not worth pursuing, but you got to respect the vigor and the ambition to try. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
I think this is going for more of an Oscar-y, I suppose you could say, type work. I don't know if it'll be nominated for Best Picture or anything, but it's gonna win visual effects. It's probably gonna win sound, costumes, that type of thing.
But
So,
I mean, they did
keep an eye on
stack it. They did stack it with some phenomenal actors. I
They
mean,
did.
so certainly, I think I know. I mean, I know next to nothing about this movie, but Oscar Isaac certainly probably has a good shot at nomination for supporting actor or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Isaac's one of the great actors of his or up and comers almost since he was in Ex Machina in 2015.
Yes.
2015, 2014 maybe 2014. One of those years. But
something like that.
yeah, this cast is insane. This movie should be great. I'm excited. Which I wouldn't have thought I would have said 2 weeks ago. So I guess that's what a trailer is meant to do, right?
I mean, I would hope so, but who knows?
But any other thoughts on Dune, Sam?
I mean, I just don't know anything about it.
From what I understand, the book is so dense that I've heard it's unadaptable to the screen.
Yeah.
Dense, like in story and in themes. So we'll see what Denny can do with it. I suppose he's probably the man to do it, even though I'm not a huge fan. I've read that he, as a child, was a big fan of the book Dune and has always dreamed of adapting it. So that's reassuring. That tells me he's had an idea in his head and wants to do something with it. Maybe he'll put a spin on it somehow. I haven't read the book. It's like 1,500 pages, so I won't read the book.
Right.
But I trust Denny in this case. I'm going to sit back.
Denny.
I'm not sure when it's going to be released. Currently, it's on the schedule for December, a Christmas release. Actually, the same day as West Side Story, the new Spielberg.
Oh, interesting.
But Warner Bros. Just moved back. I guess another piece of news. Warner Bros. Just moved back Wonder Woman 1984 for like the 8th time. Just pick a date, please. And it was like, it's near Dune, so I'm assuming they'll move Dune back more. But they still want to have it qualify for Oscar contention, so it has to come out before early February. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it will come out. I hope.
One can hope.
Exactly.
We'll keep relying on these stupid streaming releases until then. And I don't mean to say stupid. But yeah, it's good to be back in the theater as much as we can. So
absolutely.
We'll hope for the best.
The problem with the movies in the theater right now is they're all not good. If I were to watch movies in the theater right now, the average Rotten Tomato score would be sub 50. So that's not really what you want.
Which is really funny because it actually tells you something about the studios and which movies they tend to value.
Well, September is always an awkward time too.
That is true. That's true.
It's like post blockbuster summer season, pre-Oscar-y October, November season.
Yeah.
But I guess we're excited for Dune. So that's coming. But for now, or Sam, do you have any other movie news you want to talk about before we head into the review?
You know what? Let's get into it.
Here we go.
Excuse me? You don't have to go. I don't have to go where? Forward. People like to think of themselves as points moving through time. but I think it's the opposite. We're stationary. Time passes through us.
This is one of the most genuinely horrifying movies I've seen in recent times.
It was
just on a
pretty damn
general
terrifying.
or basic level.
Yeah.
And it's not even a horror, which is even scarier.
Yes. Yes. It's when I should have known better. When I first heard, because I'm Thinking of Ending Things has been a very anticipated movie for me. When
Absolutely.
I heard that Charlie Kaufman was making a psychological thriller film, like that's how it was marketed, I should have known better. I should have known that it would not be a conventional scary movie, and it is not. But yeah, like you said, it's not conventionally scary, but it is horrifying.
Yeah, for sure. But before we talk specifics, I know we just got a little bit of general thoughts there. I do want to get more of your general thoughts. What did you think of this movie? Spoiler free, of course.
I think this movie is great.
Yes.
I think that the dialogue is some of the best I've ever seen. Some of this dialogue is remarkable. We see a lot of scenes where our main character is thinking to herself and doing kind of like the voiceover where she has her consciousness kind of wander while she's in conversation with another person. So that's done just splendidly. I thought that it was just the amount of weird that I wanted from a Charlie Kaufman movie, and also a good amount of, I guess, straightforwardness and I guess comprehension, but with a satisfying amount of mystery, I would say. Do you have any general thoughts, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is Charlie Kaufman's least accessible movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
However, I think aside from Eternal Sunshine, which I love, I think this might be his second best movie. I like this better than Synecdoche, New York, even though Synecdoche, New York is, I feel like you can more easily understand Synecdoche than this, which is crazy for me to say because that movie is very jarring. But I really like I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I really like this movie.
Yeah.
It subverted my expectations multiple times. And like you said, the dialogue is great. This script is something else.
It really is. It really is.
And I mean, props to Kaufman for being able to create something this creepy, but while still managing to tell a story that obviously is not told conventionally, but that, the audience can still grasp. I know I said it's not accessible, and that's just because of the last 30 minutes.
Yeah,
But
the last 30 minutes is not accessible at all.
which we'll talk about. But for the first half to three quarters of this movie, I think anyone can track what's happening.
Yes.
Which is shocking to me, given the other work that Kaufman has done in his career.
Yeah. I think that, well, the thing about Synecdoche, New York is that I think 5 people can watch that movie and derive 5 different and can understand it 5 different ways.
Yeah, sure.
It's just such a Rorschach test in kind of the best way. But with this movie, there's a lot of inaccessibility, sure, but there seems to be at least kind of a general idea of what the meaning is. And I think the average person can watch this movie and upon a decent amount of reflection, get a good idea of what it's about.
Absolutely. And I think, you were saying, you just said, just thinking about it, you'll get a lot of you'll understand a lot more of it. I think watching it twice, I think almost everything would be cleared up a second watch.
Yeah.
If you watch
that's
it
probably
once,
true.
just read a little bit about it, and then watch it a second time. I think you'll get it completely. I tracked with it the entire time. I don't know about you, but even the end, I knew what was happening. How did you were you able to follow what Kaufman was trying to tell us?
I understood the placement of characters. Like, understood where the character arcs were beginning and ending. I didn't know what to make of it yet.
Okay.
I didn't know what it meant. It took me a few days to kind of think about. I did some research online, and I think I have a pretty good idea now.
Good. Well, this is such a hard movie to not spoil, but let's keep spoiler free for just a little bit longer. What did you, other than the script, what did you like about this movie?
Primarily, probably the style. There are very long scenes that take place during a road trip, like in a car, and this is mostly attributable to the dialogue, but the dialogue engages you such that you really don't realize how long the scene has been placed in the car until you like finish the scene, and then you're like, oh my god, that was a long while that Kaufman had the tenacity to just have two characters talking while driving down a snowy road. I mean, the way he shoots from a windshield angle, the snow pattering against it is just very well done. It evokes very good visuals and emotions. We're both from Minnesota, and we've both been through that where you're driving through a snowstorm.
We've seen some snow before. We have.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
I was not shocking in the Kaufman movie, but I was blown away by the performances. I love Jesse Plemons. I think he's a great actor. Yeah. I think he's probably doing stuff that no one else can do in this movie. I think he's probably the best performance in this movie. Although that's not to say that Toni Collette and David Thewlis are absolutely phenomenal as the parents. They're hilarious yet horrifying. And newcomer Jessie Buckley, I thought she carried this movie though. Like, she was very, very solid.
Yes. Yeah. The moodiness. The way she was able to kind of balance being distressed and also able to kind of carry on through a very awkward and somewhat frightening situation. Very well done. I just was instantly charmed by her performance, I think.
Absolutely. And I think the true testament to these four, there's mostly 5 actors in this movie. I think I was most impressed by their acting when they weren't speaking. Their facial expressions and body language was spot on. I mean, I could tell exactly what each character was thinking. Yes. Just by the way, Kaufman, blocked the shot, plus what the actors were doing with their faces.
Right.
Was very impressive. I knew exactly what Kaufman wanted me, the viewer, to get out of what he was showing or displaying on screen.
Yeah. I think when you talk about the physical acting, the body language, what first came to mind was Toni Collette, because
Collette is phenomenal.
Well, first of all, she's probably one of the few actresses in Hollywood that can pull off looking like she's anywhere from 30 to 95 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
And like inhabit that role each stage of life so perfectly, and the physical acting that takes to I guess, kind of immerse yourself into an older person's body.
Yeah.
It just blew me away. But that was my first thought. And then I thought physical acting, though, Jesse Plemons, his the way he's brooding around the house, the way he looks at the pictures and kind of deals with his parents' mild disappointment in him, like all these things. Yeah, like you said, exactly. You can tell exactly what the characters are thinking and feeling.
I will say I was very stunned by those first two sequences, the car sequence and then the home / the ending of the dinner sequence just completely floored me on a dialogue level, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
It similar to Tarantino, but with like a different style. It was like Kaufman was able to just like write something that normal people would talk about, but then turn it into something that seemed completely alien to everyone because of how it's presented or how it's said, which just worked perfectly for a Kaufman film because I expect that out of him, right?
Exactly.
And before we get into spoilers, because I think we need to get into spoilers sometime soon because this movie is built on the fact that something happens at the end. Do you have any criticisms of this movie?
I think my criticisms of this movie are just the same as my criticisms of any Charlie Kaufman movie, which is at some points it seems intentionally obtuse, kind of just definitely overreaching in terms of its symbolism. Kaufman is known to just, instead of using like, subtlety or nuance in order to kind of have a vague abstract idea of a symbol, he'll just put the symbol physically in the scene. Like he'll just cram it down, and the symbols themselves work effectively. It's just he'll just throw it in there because it's a metaphysical thriller anyway.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to talk about that. I understand where you're coming from. I almost like that he does that.
Yeah, I go back and forth about it.
I think that I mean, no one else does it, obviously, because it like breaks every rule.
Yeah.
But I think it almost works for the atmosphere that he creates in every movie.
Yeah, I suppose it does.
One complaint I have is that I think after the end of the dinner scene, I think it gets worse. Not that it's bad. It's just that it's worse than the first part, which is incredible. Like the first half is amazing, and the second half of the movie almost doesn't live up to me. Maybe it's just because of how quirky it really does get, but
yes,
I think that would be one criticism. I do have another, but it involves a spoiler, so maybe we should just go into spoilers.
I think it's time.
Okay, so spoilers for coming up for I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Go check it out on Netflix if you haven't seen it, and then come back, because I really don't want to spoil this movie for anyone. But the obvious, I'll just say my other criticism right now is that the janitor, I thought it was kind of obvious that was Jake.
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons' character. As soon as I saw the janitor, I'm like, is this going to be Jesse Plemons? I was spitballing, but I was like, kind of like, this seems like it's going to be Jesse Plemons.
Well,
which was initially a little predictable for me.
It was a little predictable, but in defense of that, initially, the first time we see the janitor, he's at home, he's eating cereal, and he cleans out the bowl. My first thought was that's Jesse Plemons' dad, because he was in the scene. Because they're intercutting between scenes, so it's Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley Is that her name? Jessie
Yeah,
Buckley?
Jessie Buckley.
Yeah, they're both named Jesse. That's weird. Jesse Plemons and Jessie Buckley driving in the car, and then that cuts over to the janitor. Jesse Plemons had just said that, his mom hasn't been doing well. So my first assumption was, we're seeing his dad, and his mom is upstairs bedridden or something.
Okay. Interesting.
So that was my first thought. Then it becomes pretty clear that that is future Jake. But
or present Jake.
Or present Jake. We don't really know.
I want to talk about that.
It depends on which lens you're viewing the movie from. But to go back to your point, I think that Kaufman was aware of this because there's that scene where the janitor is watching the movie directed, the fake Robert Zemeckis movie.
Yeah, that was funny. I really liked that.
And do you know why he did that? I read this online.
I don't, but I don't like Robert Zemeckis, so I'm going to also assume Charlie Kaufman doesn't, because that was like supposed to be bad.
No, what happened was Charlie Kaufman adapted the novel, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, into a screenplay.
Okay.
And originally Robert Zemeckis was going to direct it, but he dropped out.
That is funny.
So I don't know if it's an homage or like an FU to Robert Zemeckis. He just threw his name in there. Like,
that is funny. But
yeah.
No, that's good. But I want to. So what I took from the movie is that Jake in the future, or present Jake, whatever, not Jesse Plemons Jake, is essentially created this whole persona of the young woman in his mind. Okay, so you took the same thing. I mean, her occupation changes, her name changes, yeah, everything about her changes multiple times in the movie. So he almost created this life with her without ever knowing her, just because he regrets going and not talking to her the night they actually met.
Yeah.
I want to know, how did that reveal work for you inside of the school?
Yeah, well, I think that she is not the woman that Jessie Buckley plays, because she's referred to by various names. I don't think she is one woman. She is one singular woman from Jake's past life. I think it is that she is a manifestation of all of the missed opportunities that Jake had romantically. Because we know this because the story of how Jake and this woman met is constantly changing.
Yeah.
And these, I would interpret that as all of Jake's regrets from life. Like, I should have approached that girl at trivia night. I should have approached that girl on the street. I should have approached that girl at work, at the restaurant, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So she's a manifestation of those missed opportunities, and also all the things that could have gone along if he had taken that opportunity. So she's just like him. She's super into poetry and literature. She's very well spoken. She has her own independent thinking.
She's
like
smart,
all these things, yes, that mold into the perfect romantic partner. Right.
Yeah. I think I like what Kaufman's doing here with it's really quite sad, but almost beautiful, like how much the human mind can create for itself, because it's pretty obvious that Jake like fully believes / wants this person, this young woman, Jessie Buckley's character, in his life, that he's willing to go this far to create this image of her.
Yeah.
So I was a fan of what he did, what Kaufman did there.
Mm-hmm.
Another question I have for you is, was there enough build up to get to that point, or did Kaufman jump the gun?
I think it's kind of implied throughout. I think it's done just fine.
Okay.
I think it's implied throughout, and then we kind of get confirmed it via the ballet sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked the ballet sequences. The sequence. I don't know about you. I thought
I think it went well. I think it's very interesting.
which was quite a risk, in my opinion, to do something like that. Just because you're already so far out of left field, and then you throw in a weird dance ballet sequence that like almost like totally shifts the movie.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So when you were watching it and then the ballet sequence happens, are you still tracking the I guess thematic narrative, or are you completely lost at that point? Because I was the latter. Like I was like, okay, what now? Like
Yeah, sure. I was still tracking the story. I think I was still tracking the themes. I think but I don't think. And here's what frustrates me about not this movie, but like internet people is if you look up I'm thinking of ending things, you'll see like 1,000 articles or videos saying, and I'm thinking of ending things explained. Jude said this last week, but like if Kaufman doesn't really want us to like completely know. He wants you to, same with Synecdoche, New York, he wants you to dissect it and create your own, like, here's what I'm taking from this.
Yeah. Sure.
So I think for the most part, I was tracking, or at least I was tracking what I was taking from it.
Yeah. Especially, I like that you said that, especially because the idea behind the movie, at least to me, is that it's a battle for Jake's consciousness or
Agreed.
his memories,
Yep.
right? Even in the ballet sequence, we see a struggle between young Jake and this janitor figure, wherein eventually the janitor stabs the young man. And that I took to represent, I guess, all the fears and doubts, the anxieties of approaching that young woman at trivia night or whatever. That winning out against his sweeter, young, romantic self that wanted to be something.
Sure.
It's a struggle for, I guess, not his consciousness, but his remembrance, how he remembered all the events in his life, right? So I like that you said that, because it's a consciousness. It's not. It's something that you can't 100% define, right?
Yeah. I also want to just briefly talk about, like janitor Jake, we'll call him that. Janitor Jake, is he present at the same time that Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley are in his head? I think yes, because I'm pretty sure Jesse Buckley's character always saying I'm thinking of ending things, and we're supposed to be assuming that means she's wanting to kind of break up with Jake. I think her saying that is also janitor Jake thinking to himself, I'm thinking of ending things, like I'm thinking of killing myself, essentially.
Yes.
Which I thought was genius by Kaufman to kind of interweave that together.
Well, yeah, when I first heard the title of the movie, I'm thinking of ending things, my first thought was to suicide.
Yeah, so is mine.
I didn't think about a romantic relationship until I started watching the movie. It's like, okay, we have this young woman who's thinking of ending things with Jake for no apparent reason other than, like, it's just not clicking. But like they get along very well. They seem to really like each other. They have very similar interests. But she wants to end things. And to me, that's that is a piece of Jake's mind saying, you know, this woman, he starts having doubts about him as a man, and
Agreed.
kind of says, you know what, like, this woman, she's not worth it. Like, I can't live up to this woman. She's too good for me. And the woman's like, I'm thinking of ending things. And then that is a direct tie-in to old janitor Jake wanting to end things, end his life. Just the double entendre there. Brilliant.
Agreed. And I do want to ask you one more thing before we hit wrap up thoughts. What do you think about the whole pig?
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Is that where it like kind of lost you a little bit? Not like.
Well, that's exactly what I mean when I say Kaufman just goes ahead and forces symbols into his movies.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but we could talk about, you know, the symbol of the maggots eating up the pig. Again, that's just another symbol for doubts and how they tend to eat up at the mind, or your hopes and dreams, right? And the pig towards the end, the animated pig, when he talks to old Jake, he says to him, you know, like, it's not so bad once you get used to it. You know, and that is that pig just made me I got chills down my spine, because that pig is saying something that is extremely evil. He's saying, you know what? Yeah, he is. He's saying, just submit to all the fears and doubts you have in your head. It's not so bad. You can always be a victim. You can always be a victim of circumstance. Come on, let's go kill ourselves, is essentially what the pig is saying.
Yeah.
Because then Jake proceeds to go kill himself in the car. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit my like wrap up thoughts. I'll ask for yours, then we'll go to some ratings. But I think what I like most about I'm Thinking of Ending Things is just the fact that Kaufman is always like keeping me on my toes or the edge of my seat. You know, the whole time while I'm watching this, I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? You know, like Jesse Plemons' character says a dozen times in the movie, it's okay, we have chains for the car.
Yeah.
And I think the whole time, or reflecting on it, I'm thinking, okay, I think the chains is meaning like a security blanket almost. The chains for janitor Jake is this idea or fascination with this woman that he never got to be with. That's his security blanket, is having that in his mind. I'm trying to think, like, just work my way through, because every single thing can have symbolism in a Kaufman movie. You know, I'm thinking like the snow on the car is to show how he's trying to not let stuff build up to get to a breaking point. And then, you know, we see a shot of a car where there's grass all around and it's just snowing on the car, so it's building up the snow or all of the bad things in his life. And the windshield wipers are trying to knock the snow away, but sometimes it doesn't work because it's snowing too hard. Like, I think that's, maybe I'm overthinking everything, but I think
that's what Kaufman does to you. You know?
Exactly. I think that's the best part about a Kaufman movie, is just that you can't take anything for granted in it. Like, you have to be watching everything in order to pick it all up.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing we should probably talk about briefly is the whole Tulsi Town, I guess, segment. That was terrifying.
The ice cream scene.
Oh, terrifying.
Absolutely.
Terrifying. First of all, the fact that there's an ice cream joint opened in the middle of nowhere in a blizzard is absurd. Absurd.
Yeah.
And there has to be some kind of symbolism behind the idea of getting a large cup of ice cream when it's below zero out. Like, right?
I would think so. You know, what I took from that, the woman that served Jesse Buckley's character the ice cream, of her saying you don't have to move forward, is again Jake telling himself like, hey, we don't have to let go of this idea of this woman.
Yeah.
So that's what I took from that scene. What does getting ice cream mean in the middle of winter while there's a snowstorm? What does that mean? I don't know. Like, I'd have to watch this movie 1,000 times to dissect everything.
I think what he meant with that was the idea of ice cream as kind of a comfort food. Ice cream is heavily relied upon for, I guess, feeling better or feeling more fulfilled, even though the environment outside of you is just completely cold, and ice cream is not going to do you any good in this environment.
Interesting.
Right. So there's a lot of symbolism involving comfort. Like this, I can always go back to this fantasy of having this perfect woman in my life, and that's my comfort. And then there's the whole like, oh, I don't want the ice cream to spill on the seats. It's melting. We need to find a trash can. Like, we could go into that for hours. But
we've said this, or a friend of ours has said this, that you could teach an entire course about Synecdoche, New York, and you could probably do the same for I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Oh, you definitely could.
But I want to. So what's your final thoughts before we hit some star ratings?
I think that this movie is probably the best of the year so far for me.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I mean, it's close between this and a little-known Amazon Prime movie that came out in February called Blow the Man Down, which I thought was fantastic. Also a psychological thriller, but much more straightforward than this. But yeah, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It was very highly anticipated for me, and I think it paid off quite well. So, what are your final thoughts, Will?
Exactly that. I mean, I'm excited for what Kaufman has to do next. You know, I was looking through his filmography the other day. I'm like, I've only seen, about a little over half of these. So I'm going to probably knock out the rest of them sometime this week and next week. I'm excited to do that, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's hear a star rating out of you.
I'm giving I'm Thinking of Ending Things 4 out of 5. I believe it's the first movie I would consider great that we've covered on this channel, like a new release.
Okay.
For me, I consider 4 out of 5s to be great movies. It's very rare that you'll see a 4.5 or a 5-star. So four is an achievement. Don't get me wrong.
I'm right there with you. 4 stars.
4 stars?
Yep. And I said after that first half, I was ready to give this movie a 4.5, and just that second half just brought me down slightly. But
I think I'm with you on that. I was seriously considering a 4.5.
And then the ending just it brought me down a little bit. But that's not, you can't be too upset when you still get a 4 movie. So
yeah, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
With that being said, let's wrap this episode up with a recommendation of the week, and I have mine ready. I'm gonna go for it if that's all right.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
I was debating between a couple. I decided to go with this one just because I already kind of mentioned the other, so I guess I'm doing a double. Go check out Eternal Sunshine, another Kaufman joint, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that is. But I'm gonna recommend. My official recommend is gonna be Damien Chazelle's La La Land. I just rewatched this a few nights ago, 2 nights ago.
Ooh.
And that movie is verging on perfect for me. It did slide into my top 50 movies of all time.
Wow.
And I love La La Land. Chazelle is a master at his craft. I can't wait for Babylon next year.
Yeah.
But I think I've determined that Chazelle is one of the best directors at ending a movie. You got Whiplash has one of my favorite closing scenes. La La Land, the La La Land smile
Yes.
It's fantastic, and First Man is great too. So my recommend is La La Land, and if nothing else, you just get a look at Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. So
Yeah, I mean, dancing, no less.
yeah,
Dancing. Yeah, La La Land is fantastic. And it's one of the few things I remember when it came out, all the girls in our grade were obsessed with it. And it's one of the few things where it lived up to their hype.
Yeah.
And more, like I was almost disappointed with how much I loved it.
Yeah, it's we're the same. You and I both are like, if something's really popular, we like push back because we're like,
yeah, we're like, oh, I bet it's terrible.
You watch La La Land and you're like, okay.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So my recommend today, there's a YouTube channel called Film Theory. This guy he's very quirky, and he'll do like theories about movies, like about usually like storylines within movies, and kind of uses like science and logic to try to like form a theory. Like, he had one where he tried to say that like the Joker in the Joaquin Phoenix movie is not the real Joker, like all this stuff. He loves doing stuff like that. So he's a really interesting guy, but I watched a video from him recently that came out recently about Hamilton, which we reviewed on this show a few weeks ago. More like a few months ago now, but where he argued that Hamilton should be considered for Best Picture this year, especially in a year where the Academy is really struggling to find good releases. And he makes a pretty compelling argument for that. So check that out. Check out Film Theory on YouTube.
Cool, awesome. Well, I actually will check that out. I've already hit the subscribe button, but
oh wow.
But if people are looking for you, Sam, where can they find you on Letterboxd?
If you're looking for me and you feel like you want to find me, you can find me at sjdierberger on letterboxd.com. Where can I find you, Will?
At the same spot, Letterboxd, at willspalding. And you can find Sam and I at middle school doing ballet with Janitor Jay. But if you don't, actually, it's at a high school. Never mind. You won't find us at the middle school. But if you don't go to high school, then you can also find us at Those Film Nerds on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, and at Those Film Nerds on Instagram, and at thosefilmnerds@gmail.com. Email anything in with the show related or movie related questions or comments or whatever. And of course, you can find us at anchor.fm/thosefilmnerds, where all of our episodes can be found. But Sam, until next time.
Keep watching movies.
That's right. We'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a great week, everyone.